Today I have a very special episode for you. Taylor Ammonds flew all the way from Tennessee to share his journey, how he started in roofing sales and ended up running his own company. What does it take? Will you take a pay cut? Do you make more money selling for someone versus running your own show? He says how it is. So if you're the sales rep, you can enjoy it. If you're a business owner and just started your company or have been in business for a few years, you're going to get a lot of value from this episode as well. Taylor shares it how it is in his heavy southern accent. I absolutely enjoyed sitting down with him and listening to his story. But first, I want to give a huge shout out to Adam Sandin, Roofing Business Partner, for all the stuff that they've done in the industry in the past 5 years. Adam probably number one on my list for recommendations for anything automation. If AI overwhelms you, if you don't understand integrations, implementations of any kind, he worked with so many of my friends in the industry. I know he will bring value to you. I think their success rate and satisfaction rate is over 94%. So if you have any problems with the AI, new tools, up and coming integrations, maybe you look at your apps and you're like, what do I do with all of that? Give Adam a call. He will show you during his demo what kind of implementations they can do for your business, roofing business partner. Thank you for being the nerd in the industry. Now let's go to Taylor Ammonds and listen to his story. And I'm gonna go finish this roofing metal con in Las Vegas show. Amazing show, by the way.
And that's the biggest one, because my first couple years, I had no clear picture of my financials, like no financial snapshot. And so I see why so many companies go under. So I can't wrap my head around why company owners don't look into that a lot more, because it's almost like maybe they don't know themselves. They just know that they got into it and figured it out. When you get your company started, it's a long-term thing. You're making a commitment not only to the people that you're hiring, but to the customers that you're serving.
Welcome to the studio. Another one. Taylor, let's start with your tattoo right there. You have a tattoo of your company on your forearm.
That's it.
Tell me about it.
So we'll do a little shameless plug for Hook Agency, but a couple of years ago at RoofCon, Tim had made a post and it was like, hey, if you're really loyal about your brand, get it tatted. And so I ha-ha'd it, and then it pretty much said, hey, if you're interested, comment in here and we'll reach out before the conference. And so I'd forgotten all about it, and a couple weeks went by and I got a DM from Tim and it was like, hey, send us your logos so that we can have them ready. And they sure enough brought their tattoo artist down from up here. And he went and ran it. I was torn between here and the inside of my bicep, and I figured this one might hurt a little bit less. And I guess it'd been a while since I got a tattoo because it still hurt just as bad as all the other ones I've gotten. But it was really cool. I mean, it didn't cost anything. We threw the guy some money as a tip, but I figure whenever we end up selling or exiting one day, we'll put like maybe a sold stamp on it and then move it on. Maybe this will become like a little sleeve of different businesses I'm doing.
We're going to make tattoo removal services in the next IRE for all the businesses that went out of business. I think that's going to be more popular than that.
It could be. It could be. That would be something I could see taking off for sure.
Love it. Thank you for flying in. How was your sauna session this morning?
Oh my gosh, it was that was one of the more hotter saunas that I've been in.
It was not that. It was the one night. It was not that hot. You did good. You did like a trooper. I like it.
Yeah,
it was so enjoyable.
Yeah, it was a good time. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. So you are in Tennessee. Let's start with your journey in roofing. How did you move to Tennessee? Give me the back end story. What was your first job in roofing?
Okay, so I grew up in automotive. Well, I don't want to say I grew up, but when I got into my 20s, I got into automotive sales, and it was one of those. I was raised in a family where it was assumed I was going to go military, and then I didn't end up going military. I went off to college, and I was one of those typical college kids that once I found out you didn't actually have to go to class, I just didn't go to class anymore because I enjoyed partying and I didn't really enjoy going to class, but you've got to go to class to pass the tests. And so I ended up getting put on academic probation, got sent back home, and then was in and out of factory work for a few years. And then
What kind of factory?
yarn. So like ultimately spinning, twisting, heat setting, and dyeing different types of yarn.
Can you imagine yourself doing it for 40 years? Working in a factory? How do people do it?
I have no clue. You know, I've talked to my wife about that because I don't know how. She's coming up on 20 years at her government job. And I'm just like, I couldn't imagine every single day waking up and going into the same office for 20 years in a row. But after I got out of the yarn industry, got into automotive, and then that was really where I started working on personal skills, people skills, communication, personal development, those types of things. But I was still pretty wild and reckless. And then
I can't see yourself wild
and
reckless. You come out with a very chill Southern, like your Southern accent is something else. I used to live in Atlanta, and but you have like the most Southern accent in the roofing industry.
Yeah, well, and there's a lot of people that don't even they think I'm from like Louisiana or something like that, because it used to be worse when I was in high school and then college, but it's tapered off a little bit now. But I was actually in Macon, Georgia, or Warner Robins, but most people know Macon. And I was actually checking into my probation because I'd gotten into some trouble, and I met a guy. He was wearing all of his roofing gear, and he gave me one of his business cards, and he said, "Hey, man, car guys make great roofing people. So if you're ever interested, I'd love to have a conversation."
He was a good recruiter.
Yeah, he did well. And so I kind of blew it off because car guys are one of those that, you know, once you're a car guy, you're always a car guy. And so I never figured I would entertain going into a different industry. And a couple months went by. I had a slow month, and I remembered back to what somebody had told me about, hey, you don't have to take the job, but never decline an interview because it gives you a chance to work on your communication skills. And so I went and heard him out, and what he explained to me was what the insurance restoration process was 7 years ago. And I was like, wait, so I just go out to the house, and if they've got some damage from a storm, they can file a claim, and then we just are their contractors, and then I make 10% of whatever that contract amount was. And he was like, yeah, pretty much. And, you know, back then it pretty much was that easy, you know, 7, 8, 10 shingles missing on a roof, and then the homeowner files a claim, and insurance company pulled up with a van, and they could write a check on the spot. And it's since changed. I'm trying to think if I can remember the very first roof that I ever sold. I would say the first one for sure that I remember was in Warner Robins, but met a lady at church, went out and did an inspection, and she had some wind damage. And I said, hey, a lot of the people I work with that have similar damage have gotten their insurance involved, and they've paid to replace it, so you could explore that route.
How much was the commission?
On that one, it probably would have been $1,500. But over at his company, he would do a draw for your first month. So it was 1,000, 1,000, 500, 500 for your first 4 weeks, and then you went 100% commission. And so no training, no nothing. It was just, hey, go sell roofs. And I'm like, well, I don't know what that means. So I got on the internet and just started, I said, how do you sell a roof? You know,
comment below if that was your training when you started. Like, hey, why do you think they're not teaching? Because if they teach you, if they train you, you'll make them more money. How can you send people to do like whatever it is that you do, figure it out?
Yeah, so I can't wrap my head around why company owners don't look into that a lot more, because it's almost like maybe they don't know themselves. They just know that they got into it and figured it out. But I know the guy I was working for started out with another roofing company, storm chasing, going door to door.
That's probably how he was trained.
Yeah, and so, yeah, it was pretty much just, hey, you just go out and knock on doors and tell them that there's been a storm come through the area. And then so I would just literally pull up your videos, Bensman, and hear what people are doing in the industry. And so I'd use like one of Bensman's door pitches or something, go knock on the door. And then, you know, I started getting into more developing a book of business, because that's one of the things that I'm big on. Is a lot of these guys talk about door to door, and there's guys that love door to door, but I would say the majority don't. And so I wanted, like, how can I make sure I'm still selling roofs, but without having to knock on doors as often. And that's what opened up, hey, let's network with insurance agents, other contractors, even realtors. So it's been a fun journey, man.
So you came from car industry. Who has a better reputation, car people or roofers?
I would say that roofers still have a little bit better reputation than car guys.
You think?
But
do you think it's going other direction?
I do think it is. I think it well, and because in this day and age now, there's a lot more of these companies coming out like Carvana and CarMax and some of this no haggle
I feel like
pricing.
the car industry going up in their reputation because there's no more mechanics. Quality of the cars get better.
Yep.
So we actually rely more on dealers like oil changes and stuff. Like we trust them more. I think tire shops get more than oil changes.
Yeah.
But then roofing, we become
I think it's going down.
It's going down because it's oversaturated. You have way more desperate people, and way more people who were not trained, and now they have to make the damage.
Yep, correct.
Do you see that problem?
Oh, yeah. Well, and I had actually, one of the first podcasts I did in this industry was with Tim Brown, and then I'm blanking on the other guy's name that was with us. But we were actually talking about manufactured damage and if it was really a big thing inside of the industry. And
is it a big thing in Tennessee?
I think so. I think it's a lot bigger than people like to say it is, because I'll meet with adjusters that once we get them to open up and they lower their walls a little bit, they'll talk about how they see damage that's clearly manufactured. I'll get on roofs and see damages that are clearly not natural storm damages, or when you get on the ones where it's a 3-tab like this roof and the only wind damage is right around the valley or right near the ridge where you can get to stuff. And it's I think it's a lot more prevalent than people would ever own up to. But I was trained that, hey, we don't get on a roof and just mess up a roof that's in perfectly good condition. But if they've got 4 or 5 wind damaged tabs, we want to make sure. So we're doing them a service because we're going to make sure that it actually ends up being approved. And so the first couple months I'm in the industry, I'm traveling around storm chasing, creating damages. And the whole time I'm just like, this can't be right. And so I'm looking it up. And then that's when I found out that, this is like big problem. And so I had to separate from there. But yeah, I think it's a bigger issue than a lot of people will admit.
Fast forward to Tennessee. How did you get to Tennessee? Who did you work there? And how did you end up there?
Yeah. So this will be fun. So we were talking about it earlier before the show, but I was dating a girl who's now my wife. And at the time I was, really just coming out of a pretty bad drug addiction, because when I left the automotive industry, I had about 25 grand saved up and was going to be going out into the roofing industry full time, and then ended up going on about a 6-month cocaine bender and drained all of my savings. And so was trying to get out of that hole as I was transitioning into the roofing space. And at the time, my wife and I, or girlfriend at the time, were talking back and forth, and she was trying to get me to move up to Nashville, but I was potentially going to be moving to Columbia, South Carolina to help open up a location with this other company, and came to visit Nashville. And I thought Nashville was like you hear about in country songs, with like tumbleweeds and, all these prairies and plains. I didn't realize the Titans were there. I didn't know Broadway existed. I didn't know this was there. I had no clue. I don't know what I was thinking it would be. But I went to visit her, and then we started talking about it, and she was like, hey, look, no offense, but I've been at the VA for, at the time, it was 15 years. And she's like, I really like Nashville, and they moved me here. And no offense, but you just sell roofs. So can't you find somebody here to work for? And so I started Googling, and then came across Music City Roofers. And I found a couple more and had interviewed with them, but the management team, one of them is actually the Owens Corning rep in Nashville area now. But I really liked the managers. There was a couple employees that came in that ranted and raved about how great of a place it was to work for. And that was pretty short lived. But that's what ultimately ended up. They offered me a job on the spot because it was kind of one of those where, I don't know that I would have hired me because I was a very cocky sales rep. I was working about 35 hours a week, selling 150 to 180 grand a month.
That's good money.
It was good money, but it was one of those where I was a 1099. I knew that they really couldn't tell me what to do. I had a big drinking problem. I loved to just black out every night. And then if I missed the sales meeting, whatever. And then, but I took the job there, drove back to Georgia, packed all my stuff up, moved up and started the next week. So I actually started with Music City in June of 20 and then left to go start my own thing in March of 21.
Wow.
So that's how, and I really had no intention of ever getting my own thing going, but that was how.
When did you decide to go on your own and why?
So it was definitely from a place of ego and arrogance, because when I got to Music City, that they, in their defense, they explained that, hey, we have a production team. You only sell the jobs on the front end, and then we come in on the back end and we produce it. We make sure everything's taken care of. We're full general contractors. We can handle whatever it is that you're selling. But my primary focus was obviously roofing and gutters. But if they had other ancillary damages, siding or something like that, we would do that stuff as well. But there really wasn't great project management, and the production flow wasn't great. And I think they were having issues with cash flow on the back end because we were 12 to 16 weeks out on installs, and they would ultimately train us on, hey, explain to your customers that they want a busy company. They want a company that's this far out, because if somebody can put on a roof in 2 weeks, then they're clearly not busy enough. And I meet guys now that I'm friends with that run $50+ million companies that can put a roof on within 3 or 4 weeks, but they have the infrastructure in place to support that. And so it was a couple months in, I really just got irritated on the fact that, hey, I'm setting a certain level of expectation with this homeowner on the front end. And yeah, we might not be getting negative reviews, but we're not creating raving fans. We're not creating just a wonderful experience for them where they want to tell their neighbors. And so it was one of those where the materials would get delivered, the crew would show up, the tarps would go out, and it was just chaos for the whole day. And then they'd clean up and put everything away. So I started coming across where we were trying to bill for work that we hadn't done, or reusing items that clearly should have been replaced, sidewall flashing, some of the stuff that I really harp on in my videos now, decking and those types of things. And so I said, man, I know that I can put together a great front end process and a great back end process so that collectively we provide that client with a white glove experience, so that when we get done and we're able to, ask them for a 5-star review, they can confidently give us one of those and then also refer us to friends and family.
How did your company react when you said you were going to go on your own?
You talking about over there at Music City?
Yeah.
It didn't go well because, I remember in December of 2020, again, I was just drinking like crazy. And I know my sales manager came to me and he was like, hey, man, I'm just wondering why you're not selling. Is everything okay? And I was like, dude, I'm still number one on the board. I said, I put up 700 grand in sales in the last 5 months. I'm taking it easy and I'm just drinking. I was honest with them. And then I think it was either January or February, they called me in. And when I decided in about July or August that I was going to start Paragon, I told myself that it was going to be by the books. We were going to do it right. I was going to get my licensing. I was going to get my insurance. I was going to do all the things I needed to do. And so I would wake up early in the morning, do Paragon stuff, and then go be committed to selling for Music City. And then when I got home in the evenings, I would work on Paragon stuff. And this was building out my sumo quote, building out out job nimbus, arranging pricing, finding subs, doing all the work to open the business. And then ultimately, my commissions from Music City were funding all of that. And then, but again, it was probably January or February, and
They were not providing you leads, so all the jobs yours anyway.
Yeah, well, and I had actually told them that I didn't want any more leads because they were dumping a bunch of money into Google and all these other things, but 95% of the leads and appointments we were running were a repair or didn't actually need a roofer. They needed an HVAC person, or, so I was able to go do some, a little tune up and put some sealant on the roof and then get a review out of it. But, I was spinning my wheels and I couldn't actually go out and network with the people I wanted to. And so I told him, I was like, hey, turn me off on the lead stuff. I don't even want it. I just want to build my own pipeline and generate my own business so that I can actually go out and get bigger projects and land those types of things. But I had my mom build me a landing page for Paragon that was just, coming soon, and then had our phone number. And apparently the admin team over at Music City was starting to wonder if I might be doing something on the side. And so they Googled my phone number and found my coming soon page. Oh, no. And so they called me into their office, and I'll never forget it because I want to say it was maybe the first week of February. And the guy that I actually went into business with on the Paragon side of things was a rep at Music City as well. And so
There's two of you.
Yeah, so they brought me back there, and it was just all of them in a little half circle. And so it was like their finance guy, the sales manager, production team, the owner, his son.
Did you know what it's about?
I had a good idea. And so Jeff looked at me and he said, hey, what's Paragon Roofing? And I was like, oh, it's going to be my roofing company.
That's awkward.
Yeah. And so I said, it's going to be my roofing company once the state approves my licensing. And he was like, long story short, they were pretty much accusing me of funneling jobs through Paragon on the side that supposedly were their jobs, which I can go on the record and say I never did that. And I actually had 3 customers that did go from Music City to Paragon when I first started. But I went to them and explained to them, hey, I'm getting my own thing going. The team over at Music City will take good care of you. And I told them, hey, James over in production is going to take over. They'll probably give you another representative, but ultimately you're in good hands. You've gotten it all approved. So, you're going to be good. And they were like, well, can't we just go with you? And I was like, I guess you can. We haven't signed any paperwork from Music City. I haven't submitted it into production. And so I said,
was it your leads or their leads?
Those were all mine. Yeah, they were through. It was, 1 was a door knock and 2 were from an insurance agent that I had networked with over there. And they had 2 of them actually called the agent, the ones that came from the agent. And they actually called the agent and said, hey, here's the situation. Taylor's getting his own thing going and we would rather use him. Are you good with it? And so the agent called me and was like, hey, I just talked to, customer A and customer B. And I told him that we're all good if they want to use you. And so it was nice because I was able to get Paragon started, and I couldn't do anything for my first 4 weeks because the state hadn't approved our licensing. And again, I said I wasn't going to, cut any corners or do anything like that. So my first month, we just went out and knocked doors. And, when people would high nail and the shingles would start to slip out. So I would go find stuff like that and offer to go tack it back in for them. And then we started a Paragon storm protection program, which ultimately was just a stage in job nimbus that we sat them in. And then we had hail recon that would notify us of any storms. And then we could hit them up with a message, let them know that, hey, your house looks like it was impacted. When do you want me to come by and look at it? And it kind of snowballed from there, and we were out networking with more agents. And then once the state approved our license, we started putting roofs on and rocked out. But, one of the biggest things, and it kind of goes full circle and answers your question, is I started Paragon because I was the sales rep and I was making 10%. And I knew that we were averaging about a 40% gross profit margin. And so in my head, there was 30% out there, and all it was covering was somebody ordering the materials and ordering the labor. And I have since found out that there's a lot more that 30% pays for than I was aware of. And so it was a rough road, because
Can you elaborate? Give someone who is about to go on their own, what does it cover? What's the true overhead expenses?
Oh my gosh. So, I mean, you definitely have your licensing requirements, but I mean, all of the state and local compliance, because you need to make sure that you're up to date on everything legally required on the state level, but then on each individual municipality, oftentimes you need to have a business tax license. You need to be filing all of your taxes on a state level or reporting what those numbers are, going through handling supplier payments, supplement stuff, invoicing for clients, cash flow management. And that's the biggest one, because my first couple years, I had no clear picture of my financials, like no financial snapshot. And so I see why so many companies go under, because it was just last year that I realized that my financials were a mess, and like we were still making money, we were okay, but it was not clear at all. We were not purchasable by any means because I was approached. And
is that the goal? To be purchasable or sell the company?
Definitely, I mean,
to remove that tattoo?
Yeah, be able to put a little sold stamp on it, But whether it's an acquisition, a merger, a full just sale and they take it, but, I think everybody should build with the end in mind, because, Hunter Ballou always harps on, we're all going to exit one day, whether that's because we've passed away. And so you need to have a plan in place. Not everybody's kids want to take over the family business. And so, people need to have an idea of what they want to do on the long term. But for the sales rep that's watching this, that's thinking about leaving their company to go do their own thing, just to know that I've made less money as an owner than I ever did as a sales rep, with way more stress, way more liability, and just not as much happiness, I would say, because it took a lot of the fun out of it. And if I could go back and do it again, I would find a company in my area that installed the way I wanted to. I probably would have asked to go shadow somebody for a day, see how everything operates, see how their production works, see how their jobs are installed, see how they do on their cleanup, see how they do on their customer communication, and then just move over and continue to be a sales rep. But, taking that leap of faith and going out on my own also showed me that I'll never go back and work for somebody else. If there ever is a merger or some sort of acquisition in the future that puts me into like an executive type of position, I would be open to it, because I'm definitely a lot better to work for now or work with now than I was when I was drinking. But at the end of the day, I enjoyed being able to sell roofing. So if there's people watching this that enjoy that aspect of it and they're thinking that their company's just making all of this extra money, they're really not. The companies that are on like good big growth modes, like your Indie Roof, I'm good friends with Aaron over there. And those guys may be at 13 to 16% bottom line profit when everything's all said and done. And that's a great growth kind of profit percentage when everything's paid. But there's a lot of companies that are 2, 3, 4, but they think they're at a 35% margin. But when they actually boil it down,
a lot of roofers don't know the difference between gross and net profit.
I believe it. And again, a lot of these guys are great salespeople, but they don't know how to run a business. And I know that you probably work with a lot of those people. And so, anybody that does want to get a business going, they need to understand business as a whole, take classes, learn. But one of the best ways to collapse that time is offer to pay to go out and peek behind the curtain of a company that's not in your market. There may be people in your market that'll let you come in and look around, but I went to guys like Aaron Christie at Indy Roof and some of these other people, and hey man, I really look up to what you've built. What are the chances that I could pay you for a day to come see what you guys have going on?
A lot of them will not charge you, and they'll just welcome you.
Yeah, well, and that was kind of the thing. He was like, I'm not going to charge you. So I ended up...
Shout out to Andy.
Yeah, and...
Love it.
I ended up buying some lunch and stuff like that. I figure out a way to give them some money, go leave them reviews, stuff like that. Even character reviews, I think, are killer. And so, yeah, that's probably the biggest one.
What advice would you give to that person who's working for someone else, selling roofs, and thinking about going on their own?
I would ask yourself why. Like, why is it that you want to go out and do your own thing? Because when you get your company started, it's a long-term thing. You're making a commitment not only to the people that you're hiring, but to the customers that you're serving. Because if you're doing a massive disservice to start a company to make as much money as you can in 2 to 3 years and shut the doors. Just go out and be a sales rep and make a whole bunch of money and then leave if that's what your game plan is. But, and the other thing is, if you're not considering doing anything different or bringing a unique approach, then just find somebody to work for, because there's hundreds of companies probably in every city. And so somebody probably does it the way that you're planning to do it. But if you truly feel that you can bring something to your market that somebody else isn't already offering, or if your goal is, I want to create an established roofing and construction company because I really enjoy this, then that's fine. But I would 100% go to, why do you actually want to start your own company? And if that boils down strictly to money, then I wouldn't start it just because of that. That would be my biggest piece of advice. And then before you do, make sure that you go around, look at some other companies, see how they're operating, and have written processes.
100%. Let's talk a little bit about Tennessee market. Do you think you have too many roofers there? A question I ask everyone.
Too many? I would say no. And a lot of people may argue against that, but I know what we're able to bring to the marketplace inside of Nashville and in Middle Tennessee. But the thing is, you have so many different clientele that you're going to be working with. And you do have customers that truly want the best product, no matter the price. But then you have the people that are fine with chucking the truck, because at the end of the day, they're only looking at that bottom line number. But I think there's plenty of work to go around. I love being able to help guys that are in my market, because at the end of the day, I want to make sure our community is good and that we're taken care of and that they're getting quality work and service. And so I think the biggest thing is getting more of those companies together to where we're doing things the same way, because same thing with these insurance companies. I'll send invoices in and get responses like, you're the only contractor that's ever asked for that. And I don't buy it, for one, but on sidewalls, for instance, if we've got a cement fiber sidewall that meets the roof and that sidewall flashing is demolished, we should all be explaining to the carrier that, hey, most of these manufacturers are going to want that damaged flashing replaced. It's a requirement by the building code department. We need to get leak barriers wrapped up those walls. And so if we can all get on the same page with how we're handling those types of situations, and we're all telling the carriers these things need to be done, then maybe we can start seeing some change.
Do you feel like the quality is increasing or declining overall?
Declining big time.
Declining?
Because the thing is, private equity's coming in. Everybody wants to get in on that train. And the days of roofing and home service and insurance work being a get-rich-quick thing, I think, are out of the window. Had we gotten into this maybe in 2015, 2010, 2008, back before everybody, I guess, found out that insurance would pay for storm damaged roofs, it's I'm seeing it all the time. New construction, they're just slapping these things together as fast as they can. And so many companies are willing to sacrifice their quality for their volume and that revenue. And it's just something that I'm not willing to do. I would rather stay a small company knowing that I'm doing everything by the books as opposed to doing it just as fast as I can, as cheap as I can, and put fires out as they come.
Got it. But you're good with the equity firms in general. You mentioned it twice. Obviously, Music City sold.
Yep.
You mentioned that you would sell. Do you think it's good for the industry overall, or you think there's should be a better way?
That's a great question. It doesn't surprise me that these big private equity firms are coming in and venture capitalists and putting these sort of kind of corporations together because, I mean, you've got your Amazons, you've got your Googles, you have these big corporations out there, and home service is primarily your smaller mom and pops. And so I think it's probably beneficial to have private equity in there because they can put a lot of money into the industry and be able to serve more people. But I would argue that it's simply so that they can capitalize and make a whole lot of money. And I'm not sure how many of these companies truly want to do this because they want to create the best roofing company. I think it's more around we want to make the most money.
Got it. Let's switch. Last question on the quality. What does it mean to you to be a good contractor, and how does a homeowner spot one? Like good versus bad versus cheap versus low quality?
Yeah. So those are great questions. I would say that if you are presenting and selling to your homeowner that you ensure all your jobs meet building codes, and that's almost like a service to them, because there's a lot of guys that talk about how we're going to make sure your roof meets code, we're going to do all this, and it's like, well, I would hope so, but a lot of these guys will present that almost like we're doing you a favor by making sure it's built to code, as opposed to the fact that, hey, code is the absolute bottom. Even on the membranes wrapping up the sidewalls, the manufacturers say 5 inches. We're normally doing like 8, but also a lot of that depends on where you're at. But I would say for homeowners, like asking your contractor different questions specifically related to how they install. Because if a homeowner had a questionnaire of, hey, ask your contractor these 10 questions of, hey, when you come across a sidewall like I have, how do y'all handle that reflash? And then when, my step flashing is damaged from the nail holes, how do you guys address that? Like different questions, ultimately making sure that they understand, A, how the roof goes together, and B, that they're actually going to do it the way it's supposed to be done, can help point out who's going to be a good contractor versus a bad one.
Do you see the disconnect though? Because all of those questions, if you ask in sales rep is not a roofer. So
Yep.
A lot of salespeople will say, I don't have to know the roof. My roofer knows what they know, right? Like, and a lot of people I've interviewed, they say like product knowledge, trade knowledge is not important for success at all. And meanwhile, you're recommending homeowner, asking technical questions to the sales reps. And how many sales reps in the industry will answer that? They don't know. They don't know how to detect a leak.
Yep.
They don't, like you tell them it leaks right there. They have no idea how the water flows.
Yep. Yeah. And so, but you bring up a great point because, again, in this industry and just sales in general, it's 9 times out of 10, you're just saying what the customer wants to hear so that you can land that job, and that's really where I like to continue to separate myself because, on the technical side of things, the way the product is supposed to be done. And so I'll normally leverage that because I know that most sales reps are not going to do that. And so I want to plant some of those seeds to the homeowner. When I go out to do my inspection and we're talking about different things, I want to try and get them interacting with me. And so I want to point out, especially if I know they're getting multiple bids, then I usually say, hey, Mr. Homeowner, so do you have 5 or 10 minutes I can walk around the house with you, show you a few key areas, how we do these areas, and kind of let you know some things to be looking out for when you're getting these estimates. And then I'll explain, hey, do you see how you have these dormers and that siding comes in and butts up against the roof? Do you see how that's starting to flake away? That's because that product is not meant to sit flush against your roof. The manufacturer of that product actually says you should leave it about an inch off so that the water can channel away. So when I redo that sidewall there, I'm actually going to break out some of that siding so that I can remove the flashings that are under there, because the code department will not allow us to reuse any flashings that are damaged, nor should you, because I can't confidently tell you you're good to go and you're not going to have any leaking if I haven't addressed some of these areas. And there's also membranes that are required to wrap up behind those. So you'll probably see a substantial difference between my estimate and somebody else's. And whenever you do get those, let's hop on a call so I can walk you through them, because again, I'll do everything I can to get everything inside of your budget. But at the end of the day, I just want to make sure you get the best value for what you're doing, because you've worked hard, you've bought a beautiful home, and I just want to make sure it's taken care of. And then at the end of the day, if they still know all of that and want to go with somebody cheaper, at least you've done everything within your power to educate them on the way it should be done and kind of caution them why they wouldn't want to reuse some of those components. But again, at the end of the day, if that homeowner wants to use the cheapest roofer, they're going to end up doing that.
Sure.
So, but that's tough when, the homeowner is just going to ask those reps those questions and maybe they won't know or something like that. And so it is a tough area to navigate.
Let's switch really quick to your content and wrap it up. The last section. So you, one of the most famous roofers in Nashville area, for sure. How did you start making content? What was the journey? How did you get comfortable on a camera?
Yeah, so great question. I initially started out when I started Paragon and got connected with Joe Hughes over at Contractor Dynamics. And, my mom does some website design stuff, but she also helps me on social media a little bit. And I enjoy it because I can make sure she's getting paid and she's got a cool boss. And, but they harped on content. And I just kept blowing it off because I would say, I don't have time. I'm too busy. But at the end of the day, we make time for what's important. And there was somebody that told me, hey, if you are truly bought in on what you're selling, you're doing a disservice not to be filming that and not to be getting your message out there to everybody else, because they need to be able to find you. And so I wanted to have my stuff set up where you couldn't get on Google and type in roof and Nashville in the same sentence in any way without just seeing my face, And so I had to get over a lot of fears of getting on camera. But, to people out there watching, if you really buy in and you're sold on what you're selling and you're doing the best work in the area, then you shouldn't have any issue pushing that content.
100%. What kind of content brings you the most engagement, leads, whatever, attention? I love your sarcasm, by the way. I watched one of your videos. It was 15-pound felt. I'm like, is he serious? He's really pushing 15 pounds, because you were serious. People roast me for that stuff. Demetri, you were serious about using my knife and stuff. And same stuff. I'm looking, it's he can't be serious pushing 15-pound felt.
Well, and I remember that was the question you asked me. You were like, hey, I've got one other question. Do you really like regular felt over synthetic? Because I couldn't tell. So definitely the ones that are a little controversial, because we'll use a video I did. It ended up getting 1.8 million views, but I had a slap stapler and I was slap stapling some underlayment. And then I turned to the camera and I said, if your roofer slap staples their underlayment, slap them off your roof. And then I threw the slap stapler. And people lost their minds. Had a meltdown. I'm not a fan of slap stapling underlayment, but I've also torn off hundreds, if not 1,000 roofs, and I've never seen a leak around a staple. you know?
Yeah.
And so I've never diagnosed a leak and been like, this wouldn't have happened if they had cap nails. But if you're going to leave a roof dried in and not shingle it, then definitely want to use cap nails instead of staples, but also for the safety of it. But a lot of the underlayment manufacturers say that you can't staple it or you shouldn't staple it. And so, you know, those videos that are controversial though are the ones that perform the best, you know?
Okay, let's talk about hate on those videos. What kind of hate you're getting?
Oh man, I'm still trying to figure out how to navigate that one because I mean anything from you're a clown, you're a fraud, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. I get a lot of it, and so it still, you know, it still bothers me and has me second guessing. I'm like, am I a fraud? Am I a clown? I'll watch the video back and then, side note, I love to sneak in little stuff in my videos that I know is going to cause people to have a meltdown. Because I did one where I was talking about some apron flashing on a front wall. And then I just casually said, once you get this area wrapped with ice and water, then you shingle your way off the roof. And so obviously you shingle from the eave up, but they took the bait. And so they just started losing it. You know, but if you're going to do videos like that, you need to make sure you have technical videos where they actually know you know what you're talking about. But I really have never had a happy person ever lash out to me. And so if I see somebody that I don't know that makes a hateful comment, it tells me everything I need to know about what's going on with them internally. And I've never had somebody that's further along than me, that's on the same journey that I'm on, that has said something negative to me. And so if somebody is lashing out, making negative comments, for all we know, they just found out their spouse was cheating on them with their brother, you know, and they're lashing out and taking it out on you. And so I don't take it personal. I'll usually comment something back and just say, man, you have to be a broken individual to just come on somebody's post that you don't know and make a comment like that. And so I really feel bad for you and I wish you the best, you know, and just ultimately kind of heap some coals on them.
Got it. What tools, apps, or workflow do you use to produce your videos?
So I'll record just straight from my phone. I actually recently bought a little screen that magnetizes on the back and then has a screen mirroring so I can flip it around.
I got that. I cannot connect it to my phone. I need to figure it out.
We'll have to mess with it because if you've got the same one I do, I can show you, but we'll look at it. But that works great because I can get that nice quality video from still being able to see myself. But then I'll upload everything into a drive. We use a lot of Opus Clip. And then I've actually got a team, and I think you guys do something similar as well, but I've got a team as well that helps me take it from raw video format, cleans it up, and then chops it up into reels, and then definitely having captions and those types of things. But I mean, we're even getting it down to when we use different colors on our captions, our videos will perform differently. So we're really reverse engineering it down to, you know, again, we had talked about it briefly earlier, is my first thing was let's get consistent with content. So we've been super consistent for the last 6-8 months. Now we're to the point where, all right, let's start to refine. We've got the consistency down. Now let's start producing better content. Let's work on more engaging hooks. Let's work on more longer form content where we can ultimately build a library on YouTube, chop those up into shorts, create shorts that send them back to the YouTube. And then from those shorts, we can create stories, and then everything pushes through to that longer form video. Because I want to get into a lot more stuff on the technicalities of things and like opening areas up and how we actually go through and do stuff so that the guys that do just get told, hey, go sell a roof, they know how to do it.
Love it. 2 more questions. What would you say to contractors who are afraid to start posting online because of the hate and backlash and all of that? Or maybe just what people will think about them?
Yeah. So somebody had told me, and I loved it, was if you're concerned about how you look or anything like that, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. You're too focused on you. You have to film for who's going to be watching it. And then when you're filming those, I try and do a better job at just speaking one-on-one, and not so much like, hey, y'all, to a whole group, but just, hey, you and I are having a conversation. I'm on your feed. But the biggest thing is, if you're not going to do it, somebody in your market is. And so you might as well be the one to do it. And, these guys like Gary Vee have been preaching this for a decade, maybe close to two, about the importance of filming content and producing it and putting it out. And so you've just got to do it. You got to get the reps in, and you have to understand and know that you're going to suck at first, but that's okay, because you're going to watch yourself improve, and that's going to then motivate you to get better and better. And then, I look back on videos I've done 6-8 months ago and was just cringe to where we're at now, but I'm super optimistic for the next 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, because I know that we're only going to get better. So you've just got to get out there and do it if it's something you want to do. But I think it's important. I think everybody should.
100%. Last question. What's next for you? More content, business growth, collaborations, or something else?
Oh, I love it. So I'm currently working on a community because I want to spend more time coaching, training, educating, speaking. I'm really passionate on those things. And ultimately kind of taking my recovery journey, tying it into how to actually be a successful roofing sales professional or home service sales professional without having to rely on knocking doors. And so, I'm big on mindset. I'm big on personal development. And, the community that I'm putting together, we're going to call the Ammonds Advantage. And the reason behind that is I remember growing up, my dad used to tell us, because he had a twin sister that was murdered. His brother passed away from leukemia. His mother passed away when he was young, so a rough upbringing. But those situations don't have to define who we are. And so he used to tell me and my sister that, when bad things would happen, it was just the Ammonds curse. And so the more that I do personal development and the more I study things like neuroscience and cognitive behavior, I realize that our brains are can be very programmed. We're programmed in all the things that we do. And so I can program positivity, success, happiness, fulfillment, abundance, joy, happiness. And so whatever emotions I want to feel, I want to make sure that that's what I'm fueling and putting in and putting out every single day. And so I want to get a community put together of people that can ask questions. We're all on a common journey of we're in the roofing industry. We want to do things the right way, and we want to grow. So we're going to be bringing a lot of that out in Q4. And so I'm really excited about that. And so I'll hit a fork in the road for sure, because we were talking about it earlier, is you can't be half in on the roofing stuff. So I feel passionate and led and feel called towards the training and coaching and educating side of things. And so when we get all of that established and set up and we're running, then I'm going to look at the Paragon side of things. And what I really want to do is just put a GM in charge over there, let him hire a sales manager in, have all the KPIs in place where we can track what they've got going on, and then ultimately take a little step back and help train that sales department, but put somebody else over it to be the number one, maybe even give them a little piece of the pie and just say, hey, this can be your baby. Have fun with it. We'll support you on the sales side and production side and make sure that you're winning. So I still want to make sure that we're there, because I know that we do the best roofs in Nashville. And I want to be able to implement things and test things and then deploy them out to the community. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Love it. Sounds like a fun journey. Guys, comment below what you think about the episode, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much for coming in, brother.
Thank you, man. I'm glad to be here.
This storm will not win.
What happened to this guy?
His inside sales rep booked in for another inspection during a storm. We finally caught up to him.
If only he had Agent 1, the AI agent custom built for roofers. It follows up on leads instantly, confirms homes on Google Street View, checks the weather, and even keeps appointments within a close range on your calendar.
If a roofer were listening to this, they could try it completely for free. Just fill out the form.
Roofers are already seeing 3-to-1 returns in profit. They'll never miss a lead or end up like that guy.
Did I close the deal?
No. Your competitor had Agent 1.
No!